Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Robin Norgren and I am a former gen ed teacher, empty nester, figuring out what life is like when you have decided to make changes because you're in the third season of your life, right? And so what I wanted to talk to you about today is this idea of the Bible verse, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be opened unto you. And is that something just for young people who've gotten out of high school or finished up college, looking for a spouse? Or is that for all of us at all stages of our life? Okay, so here's the story. If you've listened to my last couple of videos, you know that part of the reason why we moved out to Ohio is because we have a daughter who goes to school here in Ohio, and we decided to make the move with her because we're a military family. We've moved around quite a lot. I was a military brat, so moving to me really doesn't bother me. It's just a matter of like deciding and then finding where to live and finding what job and all those things. And so when you make a decision like that, you kind of go along the lines of like, well, what career are you in now? So at that point I was a teacher, and so you're going to try to find a job in that profession, and then from there ask advice for like where you should live and in proximity to that job and all of those things. So we did all of those things. Everything seemed fine until it wasn't fine anymore, right? And so here I am, having made that decision because of a health scare, that gen ed teaching is not going to be the way that I go. Now, I am a curriculum writer, and of course, some of you know that already. I've purchased some of my products. Thank you so much for that. So I do have a small business. I also write books on spirituality and creativity. But, it's something where it's like, it's not a full-time job income. And we're still in that place, to be honest, where I still need to be making, a pretty, not super high, but reasonable income, right? And so as I was kind of going along the lines of like, well, what do I do now? Do I work in retail again? Do I, as I said, I had a coffee shop position that I decided to let go because I felt like I was just kind of grasping at straws, right? And so through this, I started seeing ads for the library. Now, I have a straight up love affair with the library for a couple of reasons. I love reading. It has been a hobby off and on all through my life. And I do think that reading and education is kind of what saved my life, and has allowed me to be able to make choices and change careers because I do love reading. I'm willing to read up on something to learn about it. I'm willing to take classes and those kind of things. It's just really served me well. Well, as I've started to think on it more and more, there's actually these other pieces that have come into my memory that make me think, I wonder if this is the next thing. So when I was a little girl, I at some point lived for a few years in Detroit, Michigan. We didn't have a lot. My dad was in the military as well. We had 4 kids, and my mom would work off and on as a secretary. Well, in the public school that we had, we went to school in, there was this program called RIF, Reading is Fundamental. And I loved it. They had this bookmobile that would come, and we were able to pick our very own book. I remember picking the book Little Women, and Little Women just holds a soft spot in my heart because I am the oldest of 2 sisters and a brother. So it kind of mirrored it in that way. But it was just something about that book that I really loved. And one of those things being they wrote plays and they did them together. And that's what I used to do with my siblings. This was how we would make our own fun, is that we would write plays and we would write songs. And I was the oldest, and so they were my backup singers, and I would write scripts out for them and all of those things, right? So there's that. Anytime we've moved into a town, whether it be me just as an adult or like as a military spouse, anytime we move into an area that my husband was stationed, I'd always seek out the local library as like this source of comfort for us. And we just loved our libraries. And so even throughout that time, there would be times when I would volunteer at the library, at one point working as an adult, a volunteer to teach adults reading. And so one of the things that I had found issue with when I was working at the job that I am no longer at is this like lack of urgency about making sure that kids were reading, because it was just an absolute affront to me, especially having come from my generation where I remember seeing commercials about adults who were so ashamed because they didn't know how to read. And where did we lose this sense of like reading absolutely is this really important part of like life skills and just, you know, preparing kids for their future, right? And then, so that coupled with, you know, my time as a third grade teacher and realizing that for whatever reason, we're so stuck in this idea that kids need to be having fun all the time, to the detriment of them actually really not only being able to read and have reading fluency that they need to be able to be successful, but even to comprehend the words that they're sounding out. Like, gone are the days of like the spelling list and the writing the words in a sentence and learning how to use a dictionary, all because we have Google, which again makes no sense. So I guess I say all that to say that when these jobs started showing up at the library and me seeing that the qualifications, because at one point I've worked at bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Bookstar, those kinds of stores. And of course, you're going to find someone who's probably studying to be a librarian, which I did. And she was getting her master's in library science. And so my only connection to being able to actually work in a library is you had to have a degree in library science. So here we are now I'm seeing these job postings, and they're not asking for that because they're kind of peripheral jobs within the library. And one in particular being a reading specialist, where you're just working in conjunction with the schools that are close to that library. And so as I was doing my walk today and my meditation, the verse for today was the ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be opened unto you. And so as I'm talking to my grown kids about how they need to be open to asking for what they need and what they want and they desire, I today am taking a note from my own page, from the good book, if you will, that I too, at 56 years old, can still follow that. And God is faithful to answer. All right, make sure to share this if you think this would be helpful to someone. And let me know in the comments if you have any topics you would like me to talk on.